Shortly after Ted Kennedy died, a close friend of his was trying to make a point about how resilient he was, and said that Ted Kennedy would often ask people, "Have you heard any good Chappaquiddick jokes lately?" And he would laugh at jokes about Chappaquiddick. Now, this was apparently, in his friend's opinion, meant to show his strength of character, or his resiliency, in that he could laugh about something that had been extremely traumatic for him. I don't think it shows that. Because after all, a 28-year-old woman, Mary Jo Kopechne, died in that incident. So for him to laugh about an incident in which he was implicated in the death of someone who didn't even make 30 years of age, to me, that doesn't show resiliency, that shows callousness. I also do believe that Ted Kennedy, and also the people that he initially talked to, not only showed bad judgment, they showed callous judgment, okay? And also we need to emphasize the brutality under which Mary Jo Kopechne died. Now, I do not believe, I want to say I'm not one of these conspiracy people. There was no attempt to murder her, okay? This was an accident, okay, not a murder, okay? And, it was dark, and it was a bridge. He drove off of it, okay? Now, and anybody could have had that accident, really, under those circumstances, okay? But the problem is he did not alert authorities immediately. Now, there was evidence that an air pocket formed in that car for about a half hour afterwards. Mary Jo Kopechne was actually alive. She was putting her nose in that air pocket. She didn't drown. She suffocated to death when the air pocket went out. Had he alerted authorities immediately, it's quite possible she would have survived. And the fact that he could laugh about that, again, I find that very, very bizarre. And it shows a great deal of callousness. Okay, now as far as what happened that night, I've always believed that Ted Kennedy probably intended to park somewhere, talk with her, and maybe have what would be called a makeout session. I don't think that he was having an affair with Mary Jo Kopechne, but I think he intended to do what high school kids call make out with her. And instead he got into that accident. And I think it was because he had those intentions and was a married man. That was the reason that he had, that was part of the reason that he did not immediately report that accident. That he was afraid of having to explain, exactly why what he'd been up to. Okay. Now, her parents did not allow an autopsy, which of course fed the rumor mill that she had been murdered because she was pregnant. I don't believe that for 1 minute. There was also somebody else who speculated that the reason was because they were, they'd already had a makeout session, and were afraid that they would find evidence of that. Okay, but at any rate, the fact that Ted Kennedy could laugh about something like that, that shows extreme callousness. And I think that in the sexual conduct of all three Kennedy brothers, well-known Kennedy brothers, JFK, Bobby Kennedy, and Ted Kennedy, perhaps a little less with Bobby Kennedy, but quite a bit more with Jack Kennedy. They did show a great deal of callousness towards women in general. Okay, those are just some thoughts I had.